I wouldn't, personally. I've got a niece and nephew that I'm going to be going home to see over the holidays as well. I have already come to terms with all of this and even spoken to my brother. And the thing is, I'm not going to be lying to my niece and nephew if they ask why Uncle Matt doesn't go to church, or I'm going to tell them. And if they ask what I believe, I'm probably going to send them to their dad to let him give the initial explanation, because they're not my kids. I understand what you're doing, or what you'd like to do, and on some level I would agree, and I would even share that goal, but I think it's far better to teach your nieces, nephews, cousins, whatever, in a more abstract fashion about how to assess claims to determine whether or not they're real. And that is completely honest, it's not underhanded, it helps them deal with life, and you kind of got to trust that eventually, once they start putting their critical thinking skills to use and find out how reliable they are, once they've dispensed with the idea of Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, etc., that there's a strong possibility that they may be able to dispense with these other religious claims as well. I think that I'd go more that route.
The other thing, though, Brian, is when you were little, did anybody tell you about Santa?
I was pretty gullible. I believed it for quite a long time.
Okay.
It's our last Thursday, actually.
When you quit believing, how did that go? Do you remember that?
Not so much. I do remember that my younger sisters were in a Christian elementary school, and their teacher took it upon themselves to tell them that Santa wasn't real at a very young age, so that they wouldn't misconstrue Santa and Jesus being the same person, or being similar at all.
Right.
That totally makes sense to kind of teach them more critical thinking. I just felt like I had totally misled my little nephew last year when I kind of played into the whole Santa thing.
You did, but I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean,
I honestly don't even remember when I stopped believing in Santa, except that I remember thinking like, oh, I'm wise to this now. Like I do recall Christmases where it was like, oh, I know there's no Santa.
And by the way, I know there are plenty of atheists who don't agree with me on the Santa thing. I'm liable to play along with the Santa thing, and it's too much to go into now, because as you can see, they're tearing everything down and we're getting ready to dinner. I bet Russell and Jen would be happy to address it, as they're both parents and they're hosting the show next week, right before Christmas.
Okay.
But you do magic tricks. Like when you do the little magic trick and you say, oh, look, I'm taking off, and the kid is all amazed. I mean, sometimes you do that and you don't tell them that you didn't really take your thumb off or you didn't really grab their nose.
Yeah, and by the way,
it's fun to mess with kids sometimes.
Mike's kids showed up to dinner last Sunday after the show, and I did some tricks for them, and they are, at this point, completely convinced that I am really magic, that I'm really doing something. That's and I'm not necessarily going to take that away.
Right. They'll outgrow it.
There are some things that you're going to outgrow. The problem is that religion is something that people don't outgrow, because there's this constant stream of adults reinforcing it too.
Right.
Yeah.
I got to let you go. I appreciate the call, and thanks for waiting until after the show.
Hey, thanks for sticking around and talking to me. Have a good dinner.
Sure, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back after Christmas. I'm going to dinner, by the way. That wasn't my audio sign taking off.
I think what I'm going to do is just bring those set of notes with me like every time I come. And we'll just see if we ever get to them.
We will one day, because
I'm not worried about it. I just think it would be funny because the calls are actually more fun.
Yeah, and I was glad that we had some calls that prompted discussion and weren't just, ego stroking calls. Although I'm fine with some of those too. I'm not a slave to my ego, but I'm not going to deny that it's nice to have it stroked on occasion.
I didn't know you called it your ego.
Yeah.
God, I hate the name.
Is that what we're calling it now?
I don't know about us.
Beth uses that same joke all the time. Every time I use her for stroking my ego, she'll go there. Ugh. So who's going to dinner?
I can go.
I am. I'm expecting so much.